What's up, guys? It's Casey from F1 America, and we just got to watch our first qualifying session of the season, which in my mind is really the first time you can guarantee every team is out there giving their best. So in this video, I'm going to give you my prediction for how the teams are going to line up this year in Formula One. And starting at number 10, this might surprise people, but I have Alpha Towery coming in. As much as I love Yuki and his funny antics, I just don't think that team is in a good place to perform in Formula One. Yuki is just not an F1 driver, if we're being honest. He's likely not going to have a seat next season, and Nick DeVries is very fast, but at the end of the day, he's a 28-year-old rookie for a reason. If I'm being honest, I really think that Nick is probably just Max's number 2 in waiting there at Alpha Tauri. It's also been rumored that their team might be sold by Red Bull here. So I just think all things considered, they're probably going to continue their slide that we saw last season of inconsistency, not great pace, and not great leadership at the top either. For number 9, I have Williams finally taking that jump, getting off that firm, saddled position they had there at number 10 in F1. And really, I think this all comes down to great leadership. They have the former number 2, you could call him, to Toto Wolff coming over to lead that team. They have Alex Albon driving there, who has been there for a couple years now. He knows the car and he's really fast. He's a really great driver. And they're also bringing in Logan Sargent, the American. And, well, he's American, so he's got to be good, right? I like Williams. I have a sweet spot for Williams, watching a lot of these F1 documentaries and all the history that this team, all the innovation they brought to the sport of F1. So this might be a hopeful guess, but I've got Williams jumping to that number 9 spot this year. At number 8, we've got our American team, Haas. Really, I think Haas keeps making strides. Nico Hülkenberg seems to have come back to F1 with a vengeance this year. He's also tailor-built for that car, supposedly. I mean, you see him in testing. You saw him in qualifying today, going P10, making Q1, which is incredible for a Haas car. I really think Nico's going to impress in that car, and K-Mag always is able to pull things together no matter what that Haas team is giving him. So the reason I have them saddled in at 8 here and not able to continue kind of climbing up that order at all is they just don't have the money it takes. They're not going to be able to develop at the pace that the other teams can, and they're not going to be able to have the consistency with wins and podiums and points finishes to really jump the other teams with the likes of McLaren, Alpine, anyone up in that echelon of team, I would say. However, I do think that they're going to get some really strong results this year, potentially even their best result in the history of F1. Coming in at number 7, I've got McLaren. Now, all the pundits have this team falling. I've seen some people with them at 10. I mean, a lot of people with them at 9 and 8. I just refuse to believe that the drop-off we've seen here in testing and in these early days, these early practices at Bahrain is going to hold true through the rest of the season. They're an established team. They have money. They're very, very good at what they do. And I think they're going to pull things together here. The way I'm viewing the McLaren situation right now is Zach Brown is kind of like an NFL GM with his star stud young quarterback figured out, and now he's just got to build that team around him. He's got Piastri and Lando, 2 of the youngest, fastest drivers on the grid, and now he's got to build that team around them. And rather than take small risks and make few changes, I think Zach and the team at McLaren took some big swings this offseason, kind of looking towards that future of potentially winning championships with these guys and not just settling for 4th, 5th place finishes. All of that being said, they still look really bad to start the year. So it's going to take a lot of development work for them to even finish 7th, if we're being honest. But maybe this is my McLaren fandom coming out. I think the step back has a purpose to step forward in the future. Number 6, I have Alfa Romeo. This team is just so likable between Valtteri and Zhou. They're both like just really fun, nice guys. And the new paint job this year is sick. this might just be the new paint job speaking to me, but I feel like this team is really making strides, maybe slower than some other teams, but feels like they just consistently improve, and they're a no drama, no nonsense team, just putting up good times. I think we're going to see them jump to 6th, mainly really because McLaren is going to backtrack this year. But I really like this team. I root for them kind of internally, if not externally. Number 5, I've got Alpine. I think everybody in the world has Alpine finishing at number 5 this year, so no surprises here. I think really that should be seen as a disappointment for Alpine. I mean, beyond just jumping back from 4 last year, this car feels like they didn't do anything to it. They have the same pace, the same issues, the same everything as last year. It feels like they kind of rested on their laurels, which you can never do in the sport of Formula One. You see with Aston Martin, teams are going to outdevelop you, outperform you. Alpine is just okay with coasting at 5th place. And so I think that's why we've all got them there this year, because they kind of want that. Number 4, we've got Aston Martin. So the hype is real on Aston Martin. They look so fast, so good so far this year. However, those top times that we've seen might not be necessarily true. We saw in qualifying, we eventually ended up with Red Bull, Ferrari. So I don't know that Aston is going to be competing for wins right away, but they are definitely fast this year. I just think people are jumping to crown them a little bit too quick. Let's keep in mind the way Fernando Alonso made that Alpine car look at the beginning of last season. That guy makes every car look really fast. So we've got to look at this with that lens of Fernando Alonso is the person driving that car in all of these circumstances that we've seen it. But they've still made huge leaps, which is why I've got them making that jump from 7th to 4th place this year. But some people having them at 2nd and 3rd is just outlandish. Maybe I'm being naive, but I just don't trust that owner-driver combo of the Strolls to keep things on the rails for an entire season enough to eclipse one of those top 3 teams. Number 3, I've got Mercedes. Unlike the pundits, I don't believe Aston Martin is going to make that incredible leap over Mercedes, but I also don't think Mercedes has really made the changes that I was expecting them to make coming into this year. Lewis has openly disliked the car again, saying we may need to just redesign the entire build, redesign the entire car from scratch. George also hasn't been a fan, and their times haven't been great. It's really strange to see Mercedes not just struggling for 1 year, but almost idling it and kind of not able to find a way out of this funk that they found themselves in. That being said, they're still Mercedes and they know how to win consistently in Formula One. And that's the most important thing when it comes to the difference between a 4th place Aston Martin and a 3rd place Mercedes is teams that know how to win and how to get the job done on a weekend by weekend basis. Number 2, I've got Ferrari slotting in again here. So I think we got 1, 2, 3, exact same as last year. I think they're going to make some huge leaps with Fred Vasseur. I'm a big Fred fan. Fred, unlike a lot of the other team principals, he came up through low budget F3, F2 teams. Most recently was at Alfa Romeo, building that team up with a very low, tight budget, not a lot of marketing, not a big team behind him. And what that's made is it's made Fred be more of this boss that can think agilely, that can think about strategy in the right ways, and has forced him to not just rest on his laurels like someone who maybe has worked for Mercedes or Ferrari their entire career. And that is the perfect formula and combination for what Ferrari needed to fix their issues from last year. So I do think we see Ferrari make a jump. I think they close the gap on Red Bull this year simply because I think Carlos and Charles are going to outperform Sergio much more than they did last season. That being said, let's get to our number 1 here. Red Bull is just, they are the top class. They are the upper echelon in F1 right now. Think Mercedes all the years before. That's what Red Bull is right now, and it doesn't really seem like anybody has a chance to dethrone them. I mean, even the drivers in their press conferences, which has got to be so hard for them, are admitting that Red Bull just seems to be a step above the rest this year. Seeing them go 1-2 in qualifying after all the Aston Martin talk, after all the Ferrari and Mercedes talk this offseason, is just further proof that they know they're the best. They know they're the team to beat. I think we might be looking at a Red Bull Drivers Constructors Championship for a couple of seasons here while the pack evens itself out a bit. There you have it. Those are my predictions for how the teams are going to line up by the end of this 2023 season. I am probably going to be wrong about most of these, and I will be showing my face here again to answer for that throughout this entire season. So make sure to subscribe to this channel and be updated on whenever we're dropping new videos, and come back and make fun of me when Aston Martin all of a sudden wins the Constructors Championship this year, and I'm the big idiot thinking the Strolls didn't have the ability to get that job done. So subscribe to this channel, like this video, and let's hang out more often throughout this entire F1 season.